I've been playing with Flux Image2Img in ComfyUI a lot recently, and I've boiled my findings down to 3 sections for this video. The first one is a weird but fun way for guiding the colours and composition in your initial generation. For part 2, whilst last week I looked at how fast you can do a detail upscale, this time around I've removed the speed barriers. It took a bit longer than expected, I learnt a lot of things, and now I have a massive video too. Still, hopefully there'll be something for everyone in here. And in the final section, because I have no imagination, I've also been trying out some more vision large language models, and I think I've found my favourite vision model yet. Alright, let's get into it. To start with, you'll need ComfyUI and ComfyUI Manager installed along with the various models for Flux. If you need help with starting off, then check the links in the video description. This video carries on from there, assuming you've already got your favourite Flux workflow ready to modify. If you somehow don't have one, then grab this one from Comfy Examples. Nerdy Patreons get early access to all the ones I'm going to show today, as well as a bunch of others, so that's an option too, ideal if you like pre-made things. Okay, starting off with the little image-to-image trick then. I don't know if it's new, but it's new to me. First of all, a bit of a recap on basic image-to-image. Being image-to-image, of course, you'll have to have an input image, so that's what we've got over there. So we've got a resize. Now, if you saw my previous video on image-to-image, I had loads of maths doing this, but now we've got this KJ nodes for ComfyUI pack, which has this lovely divisible by 16 option, meaning you always get the right size for your image. So there you go, instead of an empty latent, we have got an image input. Next up is the basic stuff, and yes, it's all the basic stuff, loading models, LoRa's, and your prompting. I'm using the standard Flux dev model for these, as that's pretty fast for me. To make things even faster, I've got the Hyper SD LoRa, along with a new anti-blur one from Shaka Labs. I think it's a great combination, but you can judge for yourself in a moment. Grab that new one from Shaka Labs if you like, and maybe take a look at the others they have, because there's loads more there too. And don't forget, links are in the video description. All very straightforward so far. Let's take a look at these examples. So here I've got my input image of a weird globe and a simple prompt, a painting of a castle in the sky. Now, even though I'm doing image to image, this time around I've got the denoise set to maximum. There it is, connected to the basic scheduler. So value 1, that's as high as it can go. All right, and we've got a decent picture of a castle. But nerdy, at maximum denoise, the image input doesn't matter because it's all noise. That's just the same as using an empty latent. Well, I'm sure you're right, but let's just pretend for a moment, hypothetically, that you're totes wrong. Anyway, as I was saying, just a standard image to image with maximum denoise, and of course we get our cool castle. Now, just by changing the image, we can control the colour and composition. No, nerdy, mate, look, I've just run your workflow with an empty latent and it's the same image. There's no difference in the output. Oh, well, I suppose that's the end of this video then, isn't it? Oh, wait, no, it isn't, because you're using the normal settings. I mean, who does that? What you need to do instead is use DDIM uniform as the scheduler. So there we've got it down here, basic scheduler, DDIM uniform, along with this sampler of DDIM as well. It will work with Euler, but basically that's it, DDIM and DDIM. Yeah, but the image only changed because you changed the sampler, bro. Correct, I did change the sampler, and interestingly enough, it's the only one combination that seems to do this along with using the Hyper LoRa. If I change only the image, then this time it's really easy to see. It's not random noise, it's a swirl of colours instead, and we get those colours in the same place on our render. So there you go, you've got the sort of yellows and reds and blues there, and that's what we've got here. Excellent stuff. Cool. Almost like a control net without needing the RAM for a control net, and because we've got maximum noise, it's always going to do its best to follow the prompt. However, its best isn't always possible even at maximum noise. Human input images, for example, can be very difficult to change. Same thing, I'm still asking for a castle and the sky, which is sort of what we've got in the output, but it's also got that woman in the middle as well. It didn't remove her at all. Give it even less to work with and you'll get even less that can change, although I guess maybe the armor in this case is a little bit more chunky and castle-like. Despite the lack of change at high denoise, this may be exactly what you're looking for, as you can get pretty consistent images with any prompt or seed. That means you can do lots of variations on the same thing, such as turning him into a rodent, or even changing the style. Just to finish up on this trick then, if you use another combination, so here I've changed the scheduler from DDIM to simple, and we get what we'd sort of normally expect, a completely different image. Nice, so we've seen how you can change the scheduler for image to image instead of the denoise, meaning it's time to explore the next step in image to image. In this section, we're changing our initial generation, hopefully into something a bit better. Yes, welcome to the huge workflow of comparing. Now, this isn't a workflow you typically use, so don't worry about all the things on all the sides. It's really just lots of little things all generated at once so we can see which option is best. The first few sections are for generating the initial image, then we've got some latent upscale, some model upscales, and a whole bunch of other things, hopefully upscaling there as well. All right, let's dive into this one. Starting off with the 3 options for initial image generation, we've got 2 there that are custom samplers and a more generic one without any LoRa's over there. That's a sort of baseline comparison. For custom sampler 1, I've just added a node here from ComfyUI, SU noise. That's a handy way to change the noise, not a major thing, but it's a thing nonetheless. Next to that is the baseline, no LoRa, 25 steps, just the basics. As a third option, I'm using the SU noise pack again, but this time in a split sigma custom sampler. This lets you set the noise levels for both the high and low sigmas, which can have quite a drastic impact. Changing the scale impacts a few things, with a higher value generating darker but more detailed images, and lower noise values giving a much brighter image. The range is fairly small though, with values between 1.5 and 2 being the best. Going outside those values will give you an image like that. It's worth noting that even a tiny change in the noise, if I put that up to 1.52, will produce a very different image. The split sigmas node has 2 outputs, so you could use 2 different K samplers, but I've just got the same one connected into both for this example. The only setting is a value for when the first sampler doing the high sigmas there will finish and switch over to the second custom sampler, which is doing the low sigmas there. Between 1 and 4 steps is usually okay, and 2 I think is the best. Let's just have a quick look at 4 steps. So there it does 4 on the first one, and then 4 again on the second one, and we've got a completely different image. Taking a quick detour here and looking at the DDIM trick from earlier with the initial image generations, you should be able to see quickly that the generic sampler down here with no LoRa's doesn't seem to be doing the same thing as all the others. There we go. Let's have a quick look at the initial image. So that's what it should look like. Lots of colors, guy in the middle, some pyramids, and that's what we've got everywhere else apart from the option with no LoRa's. Okay, so we've got a bunch of ways to create those initial images. Let's see about upscaling. Now, when I say upscaling in this case, I'm really talking about not only increasing the image resolution, but also adding or fixing more details. The upscaled image in some cases may only roughly match the original image, but overall it should be better. So long as it follows the prompt, all is good. That's the general plan anyway. Now, upscaling in Flux has a few little problems, with speed being a fairly big one. Whilst last week, as mentioned, I was focusing on speed, this time around I don't care how long anything takes, and I want to see what sort of resolutions we can use as well. This leads onto the world of banding or stripes, which you've probably seen. Flux is fairly happy up to around 1K per side, with anything above that having an increased chance of getting stripes. You're mostly okay up to around 2K on a side, but start going higher than that and by 4K things are just a mess. You can use a tiled upscaler such as Ultimate SD Upscale, but then you're rendering at the original resolution only in tiled sections, which you then have to stitch back together. So many problems. What are the possible solutions? Well, the banding can be lessened by using a higher denoise, but then your image changes more and more and you're still limited to around 3K. If only there was a way to... Oh, that's what I'm doing here, isn't it? I'm comparing loads of stuff. Okay. Just so we're clear what it should be making, the prompt here is essentially this awe-inspiring image portrays a formidable armoured figure standing resolute amidst an explosive backdrop. The character's metallic suit is adorned with intricate patterns and glowing accents that catch the eye. Vivid hues of gold, red, blue and green coalesce to create a striking visual narrative. Going over the 3 initial image generations, and I think the combination of hyperlora and blur removal gives these 2 images a pretty decent look in just 8 steps. The anti-blur LoRa in this case probably does need to go a little bit higher. I've only got that on 1.1, so maybe 1.4, 1.5 would give me a little bit less blur because I've still got explosions, but then I did ask for them in the background, so I'm getting what I asked for. If you're happy waiting 3 times longer, 25 steps in this case, then the generic image is pretty decent. Zooming in a bit here, we can sort of see the figure is a little bit wobbly and more cartoony too, but that may be a style you prefer. Out of those 3 then, my personal choice is the top one there, the split sigma. It gives me more control over the noise. I can use the de-dim trick if I want, and it gives me a decent image in just 8 steps. Whichever one your favorite is, the next thing to do is start upscaling. Now for the upscalers, I've got lots of different options. I'm doing some fast upscaling, simple model upscaling, a couple of tiled upscalers, and one of these double sampler upscales too. Now, as mentioned, image to image in Flux needs a high D noise, usually above 0.75, and it's no different when you're doing the latent upscale. Usually upwards of 0.7 is okay, and that's what I'm using on this high-res fix here, 0.75, so that's your baseline image. I think it looks quite good, and it's better than the original image, so alright, that's a win. With the double sampler upscale, we can get away with a slightly lower denoise, as we've already got a couple of scaled noise nodes in there. Is it a better image than the original? I think so again, and in only 8 steps as well. Sticking with double samplers here, I'm testing things from the ComfyUI Extra Sampler Pack, as there is a ton of stuff in here. Most options take forever to render, but the main node is this ComfyUI Extra Samplers one, Sampler Custom Noise Duo. This has got 2 sampler inputs and also 2 sigmas, so it's a little bit like that split sigma node, but all in one. There are far too many options to go over in this video, but as a quick takeaway, one of the really cool things is you can change the noise type, and pyramid noise gives the best details, whereas the option for uniform noise I thought was the most boring. Oh, the other thing they've got on here is 2 options for CFG as well. So if you want the first step, for example, to be at CFG 1.5 and then everything else to be at 1, then you can do that easily there. Is the image better than the original? Well, yes, I think so. It's certainly gone wild on the ornate stuff. It's got the colours, pretty good upscale, I think. Not using a K-sampler at all is another option, and it's nice and fast, like with these 2 here. Now, Aura SR is great, but its main problem is you can only do 4 times upscales. That means the upscaled image is very much like the original as well, so it won't make lines straighter or make circles more round. So this is actually absolutely huge. There we go. That is 3072 by 4096. Now, if you zoom in, it really is the original image just upscaled. For other upscale models, there are more than you can shake a stick at over on openmodeldb.info. And with these ones, thanks to this ComfyRoll Studio custom node, you can pick a model and a rescale factor, along with a few other basic settings. Now, you may find if you're upscaling anime, for example, that a specialist anime upscaling model works better. The main advantage here being it's very quick and easy. So if I crack this one open to full size, there you go, you can see it's very similar still to the Aura SR, a little bit more smooth in this case, and that is also a massive image at 3072 by 4096. Talking of not doing much for the original image, next up is Ultimate SD Upscale, a favourite from ye oldie days. This time using the same upscale model and pretty much the default settings when you create the node. Being hyperflux, however, I've changed the scale to 4, steps to 8 and CFG to 1, but I think that's about it for changes. What benefit does this give us over just the plain model upscale? Well, let's compare the 2. So there we've got the Ultimate SD Upscale version, and there we've got the just using the model version. Now, obviously, the Ultimate Upscale That version there takes ages and ages to run, and is it significantly better than just using a plain model upscale? Well, the choice is yours. Okay, so it's totally obviously not worth it, but how about with a higher denoise value? This time I've cranked it up to a massive 0.45, and now we can actually start to see some changes. So there he is, we've got some slightly straighter lines, the circles are sorting themselves out, but oh, why have we got this big box up here? And that is one of the problems of using a tiled upscaler. So not only are you rendering each box at exactly the same resolution, you've then got this banding issue. The fix for that, of course, is to use one of the seam fix modes. So you've got none, bandpass, half tile, or half tile plus intersections. The only problem with those is that each one is slower than the next, and you'll probably need to go and make dinner, eat it, and then come back before it's actually finished upscaling. There is a custom sampler version of Ultimate Upscale as well, and here I was messing around with pyramid noise and those extra samplers again, this time using LCM custom noise sampler, which I thought was fun, not because it added detail, but because of quite the opposite, instead giving me some much better circles and straight lines. If I crack this one open to full resolution and zoom in, you can see those are some very nice straight lines there, some very decent circles. So it's a better image, not necessarily more detail, but I do quite like it. This, of course, is using the slowest mode, seams fix half tile plus intersections, meaning I haven't got the little boxes. It does take a very long time though. In a similar vein is the McBoaty upscaler, this time from the Mara Scott nodes. Again, it does tiles, but its twist is it tries to caption each of the sections. Is it any better? Your mileage may vary, but not for me. Lastly is the fast upscaler from last week. Nice in that you can keep the denoise low so it stays more similar to the original, whilst also being able to fix some of the circles and straight lines. Wow, so many options. You'll have your own favorites out of those, of course, but here's a quick recap. Latent upscales are awesome, but you need a high denoise as they get worse over 2K and you'll get stripes and other issues. Tiled upscales are great, but you do need a little bit higher denoise there, something above 0.2, but you may get tiles appearing and then you need to use the tile fix and that will take ages. So how about trying to get the best of both worlds? Good idea. Let's have a look at that. Right then, for the initial generation, I'm using the double sampler because that was my favorite, and I'm also using the double sampler here for the latent upscale. Now, I couldn't make my mind up between Ultimate Upscale and just using a model, so I picked both, and you can make your mind up too. Taking a look at those final upscales then, these ones are 3840 by 3840. Now that's the model, and there is the Ultimate Upscale one. So Ultimate Upscale has done a little bit of a funny thing to his nose, but the eyes in Ultimate Upscale are a lot better. It may be difficult to see, so let's see if we can zoom in on this little bird down here. So see the little bird's eyes and his feathers and things there. So this is the model upscale. And then if we go to Ultimate Upscale, hopefully go to a similar place, you can see there the eye is definitely a lot better. So there's the model and there's the eye. Is it worth the extra time? It may be, but you've got the options. With Ultimate Upscale, you can use different upscale models as well. I used the same one in each instance this time just to compare, but do remember if you've got anime or whatever, then you can get an anime model. There's loads of different ones to choose from. The denoise here I put at 0.26 because we saw earlier that 0.2 simply wasn't any better than using a model, so there's a little bit of change there, but hopefully not enough to actually have to use the seams fix mode. I think if you go above like 2.8, then you'll start to get some banding and you'll maybe have to use a banding fix and things like that. So 0.26, I think, for me, at least on this image, seems to be about the maximum. Heavy stuff. Time to finish up on a lighter note then with some large language model fun. If you've browsed through the various vision model options available, you've probably discovered there are quite a few. Well, 3 pages at the moment, so not loads, but a good selection. Now, I haven't tested them all, but this fairly new one, Mini CPM-V, seems to be one of the best. They've just got a new 2.6 version out, so that was updated 9 days ago, and I found it's great for captions, but also great at generating the pictures in a sort of image-to-image scenario. Here then, for example, I've got the optional LLM party enabled. I'm using the mini CPM. There's a Q5 I'm testing on there as well. Is it much better than the Q4? I think they're probably about the same, to be honest, but testing is testing. Now this time around, of course, you don't have to use your standard prompts. You can ask for things. So do this as a round metal badge design. It's a close-up photo of a badge on a red wooden tabletop from the future. So the input image is a bunny rabbit. I've asked it to turn it into a badge. It's given me this prompt here, this round metal badge. So it's done all the prompting for me. And there you go. So it's looked at the image. It said, yep, it's a picture of a rabbit painting a picture of a rabbit. If I want to turn it into a badge, I can do that. And there is an upscaled version of it as well, just for giggles. So that's quite fun. For this option, I've got the anime person eating a donut. And over in the prompt, I'm saying, make it into a photo showing the image as a design on a large mug. Mention the mug first, which is on a desk. The LLM has gone through. It's made the big prompt for me. And there we have the design of the person eating a donut as a thing on a cup. So I also thought that was pretty cool. Same thing with a style. So here I've got my rather rubbish prompt, turn it into an anime styled version. It should have sort of action manga aesthetic and maybe something going on in the background, like a sort of 1990s vibe, because that's how you should prompt things. And there we go. So it gives me a proper prompt, which results in a generation like this. Now here, the upscale, of course, has started to go a little bit less anime and a bit more realistic. So I'll probably have to look at ways of properly upscaling anime things, but I think that looks pretty cool either way. Turning things into cakes is also a laugh. So here I've got a badger and I'm saying represent this as if it's a cake on display in a luxury cake shop. And what does that give us? Well, of course, it gives us a badger cake. Boop. Does it matter if you've got text in the image? Well, no, because here I'm just prompting, make this much better somehow, I dunno. And this is how it thinks the image would be if it was more awesome. So I've got lots of pictures of my relatives on the wall. There's a mini-me. If I scroll down to the high-res fix there, we've got, that's like 3D popping out the telly there and some very delicious looking pizza. Putting things on TVs is a thing you can do as well. So there, I've asked to put it onto a large CRT monitor, and there we've got it, and a little upscale too. So imagine prompting for that. I want that on a CRT monitor. That'd be quite difficult. I'm not that bright. This is a game Garmind from 1920. Did anyone ever have the game Garmind? Now, if you've made it all the way to the end, you get this special little trick as well. So I've added another LoRa. This time I've got my Beardsley LoRa in there, quite a low strength, 0.75, and I asked to make it into a vintage mug. All right, so what's weird about this? Well, what it's done is it's described the fox, it's given me a photo of the mug, but the fox is in the style of the LoRa. So I thought that was pretty good. I've got a photo and the style LoRa, so I've mixed the two things together. That was quite fun. Anyway, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed all the things. Maybe you learned something and have lots of new tricks to try on whichever Flux workflow you are playing with at the moment.
Ooh, nerdy rodent. He really makes my day. Showing us AI in a really British way.